been really wanting you to be part of ISKCON Milton for long. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Uh, Hare Krishna.
Hare.
Thank you very much, Shama Mohini, for those kind words. And welcome you all to the ISKCON Milton's ongoing series of online discourses. I'd like to thank the management of ISKCON Milton for giving me an opportunity to speak to you. As Shama Mohini mentioned, the topic today is keeping the faith. We'll start by chanting invocation prayers and then we'll start with the class. Please join me. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshetarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So please let me know if you can see me well and you can hear me well. Then I'll
Yes, Prabhu.
proceed. Oh, thank you so much.
Perfect, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Okay, so as I mentioned, the topic today is keeping the faith. We'll discuss what is faith, what are the different types of faith, and what are the different degrees of faith. And then, of course, how to cultivate faith, which is to develop and nourish both of them. So let's start by defining what faith is. So if you look at the dictionary definition of the word faith is complete trust or confidence, or unquestioning belief that does not require proof or evidence. So in Sanskrit, actually, the word for faith is Shraddha, which comes from two root words, Shrat and Dadhati, which means that which leads to truth and reality. The faith suggests a very strong and unquestioning belief in something with no supporting evidence or empirical proof. When there is something that cannot be seen with the naked eye or understood by our senses, then it is generally discounted as something non-existent or something that has to be taken on faith. To many people today, the reality is what their senses can grasp and conform to. So if a model doesn't fit their conceptions of whatever it should be, then they call it mythology. And that's why a lot of times we hear people say all the Vedic scriptures are mythology. Mythology means false, something that's not real, something made up. For these people who are looking for proof for everything before they accept, the faith becomes a very difficult concept to accept. They tend to question everything that they cannot understand. They cannot understand through their senses or through their common sense. That's why they challenge those who believe in God and they say, well, show me God. They say seeing is believing. But they don't understand that all us humans, have four fundamental defects. One of which is that our senses are imperfect. Therefore, our senses don't always give us correct understanding. We cannot see so many things as they are because our eyes are limited. For example, we cannot see in the dark. That doesn't mean things don't exist in the dark. We just can't see them. So the capacity of our senses is very limited. And sometimes we need support from instruments or sometimes mathematical models to understand or to see things like electron, proton, neutron, or faraway planets or stars. But they have no trouble believing those things because they have been brainwashed into believing what the scientists and the mathematicians say. So they're happy to take their words as ultimate reality, even though they're nothing but references. I'm sorry, inferences. So faith should be taken on something that does not change over time. So, for example, Bhagavad Gita, it was the messages of Bhagavad Gita were the same when Lord Krishna spoke to the sun god millions of years ago. And those messages were still the same when 5,000 years ago, he gave the messages to Arjuna. And they're still true today. For example, we are spirit souls. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. That knowledge never changes. And therefore, that is the platform on which we should place our faith. As we know, many areas of science keep changing. Excuse me. But we have not believing them. Our faith in scriptures is not blind faith as claimed by some people. It's actually based on logic. And that's why our scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, are full of questions and answers to remove the doubts in the minds of people and ensure that they're not believing anything simply on blind faith. There's logic behind it. There's reasoning behind it. And the other interesting thing is that the reality of this world is that so much of it is based on faith. There are many things with which we have no direct experience. Yet we consider them to be true on the basis of faith. It's like the knowledge that a child gains from his parents. The child's belief in the parents' teachings is based on a simple faith that my parents' teachings are credible. A child does not go around testing or finding proof for everything that his parents tell him or teach him. He simply accepts it because he has faith. So there are two types of faith actually. One is called mundane faith. For those of you who understand Hindi, it's Laukik Shraddha, which refers to things, excuse me, to things we can see, we can touch, we can feel. The other one is transcendental faith, or in Sanskrit it's called Paramarthik Shraddha, which refers to things that are invisible or even beyond the region of our senses and mind. In everyday life, we show our mundane faith at every moment, sometimes without even realizing it. And that's a good thing, because without a certain degree of faith, we could become too fearful to do even the most routine things like riding in a car or taking an airplane to go somewhere. And we do that despite betrayals and proof to the contrary. For example, we have drunk drivers, we have drunk or insufficiently trained pilots, or even untrained pilots. Unsafe vehicles, hijackings, etc. Accidents happen all the time, but we use them anyway. There was a news item maybe about a month ago from one of the international airlines. The military in that country fired 30% of the pilots who were flying these international flights because it was proven that they all had fake certificates. They were not trained to be pilots, but they were flying these planes. And all these people who were taking those flights were doing this on a simple faith that this is a trained pilot. They know what they do. But still, we hear those kind of stories, but we keep doing that because we have this mundane faith. We don't realize that a mundane faith is always tainted with the defects of human nature, with one of which is tendency to cheat. Excuse me. Transcendental faith, on the other hand, is not so intuitive due to our conditioning of believing in only what we can see or feel or touch. But transcendental faith is required when faced with unusual situations like life and death, or dealing with any other situation where we have little or no control. Like COVID-19, we are struggling with that, no control over, when it will end, who's going to be affected, when and where, etc., etc. We didn't ask for it, but we got it anyway. So when that happens, then we should remember that we are like that child whose only shelter is his parents. I'll elaborate on that in a minute. So as I was saying before, we are limited by our imperfect senses, and we all have imperfect senses. It simply means that we can only perceive things that are situated on material platform. And direct perception, like seeing, hearing, smelling, etc., is the most mundane but most used approach to acquiring knowledge. However, that leaves out all subtle and invisible elements that cannot be perceived with our limited senses. I'll go back to the examples I gave you before. We cannot perceive things that are too small, like the atoms and the electrons, or things that are hidden, like far away planets or stars. Therefore, we just take things. We take things for fact based on our faith in the experts on various subject matters. Subject matters like science, medicine, engineering. That is mundane faith. Transcendental faith, on the other hand, is standing on a more sturdy ground because the conclusions that are drawn from it are coming from a higher source, which is free from material defects. And you all know who I'm talking about, Krishna. Many scientific theories are outdated, inconclusive, or have actually been proven wrong. It's like the recent debate on whether wearing a mask during this time of COVID-19 is good or not. And I remember back in March, they were saying, well, whether you wear it or not, it doesn't make any difference. Then in April, they started saying, no, actually don't wear it because wearing the mask can do more harm than good. And now, as you all know, it's been made mandatory. So, like, who do you believe? When do you believe? I mean, there's a whole bunch of debate that goes on about various diets. This works, that works, or doesn't work, or vitamins and the use of them, or how to raise a child. So many theories, so many philosophies, and they keep changing, and we keep believing them. Yet, many people would rather have faith in those theories because it is, scientific, than in the messages of our scriptures because they refer to something beyond the material concepts or material perceptions. So as we advance spiritually, our faith also develops and grows. In Vedic philosophy, faith is not an abstract or an impersonal concept. It is not a state of mind either. Rather, it is an energy that stimulates the heart. I should say that it stimulates the heart and confirms the spiritual path for the devotee. Faith in its purest form is, you can think of it as halo of Shrimati Radharani, by the light of which we may understand Krishna. So let's talk a little bit more about transcendental faith. There are three types of transcendental faith. The lowest type, the first one, is known as soft faith or initial faith. And that gives us only enough faith to bring us maybe into the temple, into the association of devotees, and maybe enjoy what's going on in the temple. Some dancing is going on, some singing is going on, maybe the lamp ceremony, art is going on, and people like that, or enjoy watching the deities, how beautifully they're dressed, etc., etc. But it's based more on curiosity, not on the scriptural knowledge or belief in the truth of the scriptures. That's not there. But it's usually not enough to bring people back to the temple or keep bringing them back to the temple. Once curiosity came, satisfied it, and we're gone. If nothing is done to strengthen that initial faith. So the second type of faith is what you would call firmer faith, more firm. And with this faith, although we may not be conversant in scriptures, we believe in the truth that's taught in the scriptures. In other words, we have some degree of belief in what the scriptures are saying to us, the messages of the scriptures. And of course, the highest type of faith, which is known in Sanskrit as nishtha, or unflinching faith. That gives us firm conviction that cannot be changed, no matter what. It cannot be changed. Because it's based on firm knowledge of the scriptures. So a devotee who has nishtha, or the unflinching faith, feels that if he can attain Krishna consciousnness, all his desires will be fulfilled. And there's nothing more important than the development of Krishna consciousness in this person's mind. Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purports in Bhagavad Gita, says, Shraddha sabde vishwasa ei sudrudha nischay. Krishna bhakti kaile sarva karma krit hoy. Which means that this firm faith makes a person believe that if I simply serve the Lord, all my desires and all the work will be done automatically. I don't have to worry about it. And that is firm faith. And we'll discuss a little bit more about that. Another comment I want to make is that faith is like love. You cannot analyze faith too closely. without fear of losing it. We live with the results of faith. And what is that? We practice our sadhana. We live with difficulties in Krishna consciousness, and we know that there are many difficulties and obstacles as we're trying to move ahead or progress in our Krishna consciousness. But we remain attached to, if not attached, at least attracted to Krishna. And here's another point, very good point. On faith, we question our Guru. And with faith, we accept his answers. I think it's a very important point. I want to repeat this. On faith, we question our Guru. Means we ask a lot of questions. And with faith, we accept his answers. On faith, we then entrust him with our soul. And that's the relationship between Guru and disciple. It's based on that faith that my Guru will give me answers that are true. My Guru will give me instructions that will give me knowledge. My Guru will give me instructions that if I execute sincerely, I'll get to my ultimate goal, which is obtaining love of Krishna. My Guru is interested in my spiritual life. He's concerned about my spiritual life. He'll do whatever it takes to help me get there. And therefore, I accept everything without it being in a challenging mood. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text 34, I think says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya. That we question our Guru, but in a humble mood, not in a challenging mood, willing to accept all those answers. And when we do that, Krishna says, Updekshanti te jnanam, jnaninas tat darshana. The Guru has seen the truth, and he'll impart the truth to us if he sees that we have faith in his instructions. So even if we don't know exactly what it is that awakens faith in our heart, but when the time, place, and circumstance are right, that faith will come and we'll be able to act on that budding of faith. So they kind of go together. The more faith you have, the stronger it gets. And eventually it becomes very firm. And I'll discuss that in a minute also. Some people, I'd say, try to prove their faithfulness by pointing to supposed miracles in their lives. Basically, they had a problem, they prayed to God, and the problem got solved, or they got what they were asking for, and they said, oh, the God responded to my prayers. But really, that's not the best approach. It's more fruitive than anything else. It's like we're asking God to prove his power by doing something that can be measured in this world. So the devotees don't want that. Rather, devotees wish to have a simple faith in Krishna's existence and in his love for us. We, the devotees, want a simple faith that Krishna accepts our service. It's a very simple faith. When I serve, Krishna accepts it. This faithful dimension should be our reality, regardless of our material prosperity or lack of it. We must always trust that Krishna's desires are being carried out in our lives. Not our desires, not our plans, not our firm desire to do something or whatever is Krishna's desires are being executed. And when we do that, then the firm becomes stronger. So then the question becomes, well, so how do I develop that faith, the initial faith from where it all begins? How do I develop that faith in God? Well, so this very interesting concept called Sukriti. Faith develops through earning of the Sukriti, or in English it will be called spiritual credits. So when we earn these spiritual credits, we develop faith. So how do we earn that? The spiritual credits or Sukriti is earned when we serve a devotee of the Lord. In some manner, it doesn't matter how, but in some manner, when we serve a devotee of the Lord, then we earn what's known as spiritual credits. It can be earned consciously, what is called Gyat Sukriti. Gyat means known in Sanskrit. So if we're earning it consciously, like deliberately knowing, then it's called Gyat Sukriti. Or it can be earned even without realizing through maybe indirect service, and then it's called unconscious or Agyat Sukriti. Agyat means unknown or unconscious. I can give an example to make it a little more clear. Imagine a man sowing a seed for a mango tree somewhere, and then leaving that place and going wherever they live, and more or less forgetting that they had once sowed a seed of mango tree somewhere. Over time, the seed develops into a mature tree, and over time, one day, some other devotee is walking by. He's tired, has been traveling for a long time. It's summer season, the hot sun, especially in the land of India, and he sees this nice mango tree. So he sits down under it for some rest. After his rest, and the shade was provided by the mango tree, and then after some rest, he looks up and he sees this mangoes simply hanging from the branches. He picks a few, washes them, or cuts them, offers them to the Lord, and then honors the prasad. And then he leaves. The man who sowed the mango tree does not even know that some devotee took rest and took some of those mangoes. But he gains the Sukriti or the spiritual credit, what you would call indirect service. And he doesn't even know that he got it. So the point is that both conscious and unconscious spiritual credits earn him that is initial faith. So that's how you get the initial faith. Because people always say, well, so how do you start? Well, this is how you start. Now, during this initial soft stage of faith, it's natural that there will be many doubts in your mind. It could be doubts regarding power of prayers, or power of Krishna even, or faith in inconceivable pastimes of Krishna, like this little child is stealing butter, and next morning he's killing some huge demon who's many, many times his size. How do you reconcile that? Like even Brahma got bewildered with that one. Or doubts even about the messages or the words of scriptures. So when that happens, the best way to clear these doubts is to ask questions of those who have faith. And clearing one's doubts and developing knowledge through studying of the scriptures strengthens our faith. And eventually it would bring us to the stage of firm conviction, or what we call nishtha in Sanskrit. Another interesting point about faith is that it doesn't begin with the mind, or for that matter, even with the eyes or ears. Rather, it begins with the tongue. chanting and honoring prasadam. By simply engaging the tongue in Krishna's service, you can understand the highest truth. Because let's face it, ultimately, what is faith? Faith is simply a gift of God. I want to repeat that. Faith is simply a gift of God we are given when we serve a devotee or God somehow. As we increase our association with the devotees who have strong faith, as we engage in more devotional service of hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna or Krishna's name, qualities, and pastimes, our what you call anarthas, the unwanted tendencies, like the greed, lust, anger, and envy, they start to diminish, they go down. And our sincerity and attachment to Krishna grows, at which point Krishna simply gives us our faith. So he's gifting us that faith and makes it strong, natural faith. What's natural faith? Well, natural faith is like love in our heart for Krishna. As you know, love is not created, it's rekindled or it develops. And it rekindles itself or awakens under the right circumstances, which are, as you were saying, performance of devotional service, of chanting, hearing, remembering, etc., devotee association, deity worship, and all those kind of things that are part of devotional service. As you do more and more of those, they develop higher and higher and stronger and stronger. Okay. So then let's talk a little bit more about nishtha, which is full faith, firm, unflinching faith. So let's understand that firm, unflinching faith means full surrender. As our faith moves from initial stage to firmer stage to full faith, that's nishtha, our degree of surrender to Krishna increases proportionately. One could actually say that as the degree of our surrender increases, our faith becomes more and more unflinching. So both ways. As our faith increases, the degree of surrender increases. As the degree of surrender increases, our faith increases. So they're going hand in hand, supporting each other. Ultimately, you have what's called unflinching faith and full surrender. And I want to give you an example of that by quoting from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 14. It says, Sarvam etagritam manye janmam vadasi keshva. It says, Arjun says that, my dear Lord Krishna, I believe every word you have said to me. It is only in the 10th chapter. You know, we are not done yet with Bhagavad Gita. There's 8 more chapters to go. But right here in chapter 10, immediately after recognizing Krishna as the Param Brahm Param Dham, Arjun says, I believe every word you're saying. Every word you're speaking to me, Krishna. I completely believe 100%. I have no question. I have no challenge. I simply believe what you say. And along those lines, I want to share a story with you, which would illustrate the level of Arjuna's trust in Krishna's words. It's not just empty words. And it's a story of Krishna, Arjun, and a little bird. So Krishna, Arjun, and a little bird. So what happened? One day, Lord Krishna and Arjun were strolling in a garden when they saw a bird hovering in the sky. Pointing to it, Krishna said, hey, see that bird, Arjun? Is it a dove? Arjun said, yes, my lord, it's indeed a dove. Krishna said, but wait. I think it's an eagle. Is it an eagle? Isn't it an eagle? Krishna asked. Arjun said, yes, that is definitely an eagle. Krishna said, no, it doesn't look like an eagle. It's definitely a crow. Arjun said, without a doubt, Krishna, it's a crow. At this point, Krishna started laughing. And he actually chided Arjun. He said, Arjun, are you blind? You don't seem to have eyes of your own. You're simply agreeing with me to whatever I say. And Arjun said, this beautiful answer. Arjun said, Krishna, for me, your words are far more trustworthy than the evidence of my eyes. Just look at the feeling, look at the faith. He's saying, Krishna, for me, your words are far more trustworthy than the evidence of my eyes. When you say something, you have the power to make it so. Be it a crow, a dove, or an eagle. Hence, if you said it's a crow, it must be so. No need for argument. No confusion. Whatever you say is true. So, please trust me. Arjun was not the type of person who will offer some silly flattery to Krishna. They were good friends. He indeed trusted Krishna's judgment more than his own senses. And that's the firm faith we're talking about. The firm, unflinching faith in the words of Krishna. As I was saying before, faith and surrender go hand in hand. And again, I'm just repeating myself. We are surrendered to the degree we have faith. Full surrender comes from full faith. And what's Krishna looking for in us? Krishna is actually looking for that full faith or full surrender. And again, another story is fully illustrated by the wonderful story of Draupadi. Draupadi was a surrendered soul and loved Krishna like her own brother. And of course, Krishna loved her like his own sister. He loved her so much that he gave her the name Krishna, the feminine pronunciation of Krishna. In Canada, sometimes it's difficult because you all say Krishna, but Krishna versus Krishna. Krishna means female Krishna. And that's the name he gave to Draupadi, his adopted sister. Draupadi, as you know, was married to the Pandavas. And you also know the story of Kauravas and Pandavas, how Duryodhan cheated the Pandavas in a game of dice and won everything. Everything they possessed, he won. So much so that they sold themselves, became slaves, and then they bet Draupadi and lost her. At that point, one of the other cousins, Dushasana, as you may know, dragged Draupadi by her hair and brought her to the assembly where the gambling match was going on. And he tried, on encouragement of Duryodhan and Karna, to strip Draupadi naked by pulling her sari in front of everyone. Everybody. Bhishma Pitama was there, Dronacharya was there, Kripacharya was there, so many other people were there. Vidura was there, in front of everyone. He tried to strip her. And Draupadi, as you know, asked everyone present there, including her husbands, including the elders like Bhishpitama, Vidura, and everybody else, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, etc. She begged for help, but not a single person came forward. Her own husbands did not come forward. Then she cried out to Krishna. Krishna was in Dwarka, another city about 1,000 miles away from Hastinapur, where this was happening. And it seemed to her that Krishna didn't come. Krishna didn't come to her for help. Immediately after her cries. Despite her cries, he did not come immediately. But eventually he did. And he supplied so much, literally unlimited amount of cloth to save Draupadi's honor. So much so that Dushasana, who had the strength of 6,000 elephants, became tired pulling on her sari. and gave up. So a few days after this happened, Draupadi met Krishna. And literally in a fury, she was really upset, very angry with him. So with this fury, she scolded him. She scolded Krishna. But that's out of love, of course. But she scolded Krishna for not helping her when she first cried out for help. And you know what Krishna said? He said that when, Draupadi, when you first called out for me, you also kept your other hand firmly on your sari, which meant to me you were not yet ready to fully surrender to me. And your faith in me was not strong enough to trust me to come and save her. And he adds, it's only when you lost all hope that you let go of your grip on the sari and you raised both your hands in the air and you cried out, Krishna, Govinda, please help me, in a mood of full surrender. Krishna said, only then I appeared and I saved you by supplying millions of yards of cloth. Even a person like Dushasana with all that strength couldn't do anything because I was there to save you. And that's the point that Krishna is making. You need my help, you need to surrender. And that's the connection making. Sarvadhamana parityajya, mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshishyami ma shucha. Which means that you don't have to worry about a thing if you give up everything for Krishna, which means full faith in Krishna. And so therefore we should understand that Krishna reciprocates our faith. But the key word is reciprocates, is looking for that faith. And he will not let us down if we have strong protection. Have strong faith in his protection. And by the way, Krishna is not limiting his mercy to just humans. He will reciprocate even with non-humans. But he's looking for that faith. There are many stories in our scriptures about that, illustrating that point. So please allow me to share one story that illustrates that point very nicely. And you all know the story, so I'm just going to give you with little detail. It's about Gajendra, the elephant, who was attacked by a crocodile while enjoying a nice leisurely bath in a lake with his family and his soldiers and all that. And the fight between the crocodile and the elephant went on for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Finally, Gajendra, the elephant, realized he was not going to win this battle. And he felt that he was nearing his death. He asked for help. He asked for help from everybody who was present there. His wife, his children, his soldiers, but nobody could help him. They all said, sorry, we have tried, but we can't help you. It was at that time, and due to the pious credits, the spiritual credits from his previous life, Gajendra, the elephant, remembered Krishna. And what did he do? He simply plucked a lotus flower from the lake and offered it to Krishna, along with heartfelt prayers, but prayers in full faith that Krishna will come. He was not thinking, I hope he will come. I hope he hears me. I hope he exists. Maybe he will come. Maybe he won't come. None of that. None of that. He knew in the heart of his hearts that Krishna was there. Even though all he could see was sky and the lake and the crocodile and the people. He didn't see Krishna, but he knew in his heart he's there. And so when he took the lotus flower and offered those prayers of love, in complete faith, he said to himself, I don't see him, I don't hear him, but I know He's there. He's within my heart. He is within everything, and He hears me. I know because He was there for other devotees, like Prahlad, like Dhruva. He had this complete, unflinching faith that Krishna was accepting the lotus flower from him. And sure enough, Krishna did not disappoint him. He came immediately on his carrier, Garuda, cut the crocodile's head with his Sudarshan Chakra, the disc. And not only that, but he also put Gajendra on a special airplane to take him to the spiritual world. Why? Well, Krishna did all this because the Gajendra, the elephant, surrendered his life to Krishna and showed complete faith in him. Krishna will not let a person, a devotee with full faith down, ever. And I tell this story because as we perform our devotional service, we should have the same unflinching faith that Krishna is accepting our service. And it doesn't matter what we're doing, whether we're chanting our rounds, we're attending a class, we're sweeping the floor, or washing the pots in the kitchen. We should have complete faith that here and now, at this very moment, Krishna is present in my heart, present in this room, watching, hearing, responding, and accepting my efforts. And if I'm doing it properly, Krishna at this very moment is pleased with me. And that is bhakti. That is faith. And that is surrender. So when we have that conviction, then we can put our complete heart into whatever we are doing. Because bhakti or devotional service is about offering our love in whatever we do. How can we actually offer our love with substance if we're not even convinced that Krishna is right here at this moment, watching and accepting? So this faith is very, 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 very critical in our lives. When we are in the most dangerous situation, or actually any situation for that matter, even right now, when things seem to be all right, we should be confident that just like Lord Nrsimha was there for Prahlad as he was being tortured by his own father, Hiranyakashipu, as Krishna was there for the residents of Vrindavan, whenever they were in trouble, Krishna is there watching us and is accepting our service. And he will help me. He will save me. There's no question about it. Rakshishyati iti vishwasa. He will save me. There's no question in my mind about it. No discussion, no argument. He will save me. So all these stories that I have shared with you just now, they're not fables. They're not made up stories. They're actually history. And these things, these events actually happened. The scriptures simply narrate them to give us the perfect understanding of reality and to increase our faith in Krishna. We should be convinced that Krishna can do whatever he wants, including appearing from a pillar or lifting a big hill when he was merely 5 years old. Why does he do it? He does it not to show his superiority or supremeness, but he does it to show his love for his devotees and to protect the love of his devotees for him. In return, the devotees have that faith that he's here, and the devotees surrender to Krishna with love. The stories in scriptures are about the reciprocation of Krishna's love with his devotees and vice versa. So we must have faith in our scriptures if we want to have that faith and if we want to surrender to Krishna. So what are some of the benefits? Just quickly, I want to talk about the benefits. Well, so when everything seems to go wrong in life, and it happens, our faith empowers us to see the benevolent hand of Krishna guiding us out of our problems. To understand that everything's actually all right, even if it appears wrong. When we are faced with adversities, as inevitable in this world, it will happen, we'll be in difficulty, we'll be in adversity. Our peace and happiness will depend not on our health, not on our wealth, not on our power, not even our place in the society, but on our faith in Krishna. As I said before, faith is our way of reciprocating Krishna's love for us. By having faith and then surrendering, we're telling Krishna, we love you, we trust you, we accept you as our Lord, our protector, our guardian, and our well-wishing friend. Then Krishna reciprocates by providing his protection, and demonstrating his love for us. So, complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on material things give us real freedom, real independence from the shackles of this material world. I should point out that faith increases our enthusiasm to serve the devotees and the Lord, and it's actually vital for the discharge of devotional service. It's 5:49, so I'm going to just very quickly talk about how we can nourish. We talked about how we develop it. Let's quickly talk about how to nourish and maintain our faith in God. And then I'll tell you one story, then we'll finish and leave it for questions. So it takes years of spiritual practice to cultivate faith. But a complacent and lax approach to spiritual practice will allow the illusory forces of Maya to drag our innocent faith down. In a matter of moments, it doesn't take long. And you know what? To lose money, prestige, health, or even life itself is not such a big loss. But to lose faith in Krishna is the greatest loss. Therefore, we must work very hard to cultivate faith. So just very quickly, I'm going to talk about a few things that we can do. One is associate with the devotees who have high degree of faith. Faith is contagious, and faith begets faith. Second thing we can do is to hear more and more about the qualities, the pastimes of Lord Krishna and his incarnations to nourish and maintain our faith. Read the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and get inspired from the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. Of course, the chanting is very helpful, chanting of Mahamantra, I should say, regularly and attentive, without offenses. Visiting holy places. These are all the things that Lord Chaitanya also talks about. And cultivate knowledge by reading scriptures, because then it's easier to remove our faith. Our doubts. And finally, faith thrives in an environment of enthusiasm. It gets stronger as the enthusiasm to hear about Krishna and to serve Krishna grows. Our enthusiasm has to be based on love and not on the results we receive from our service. Otherwise, it's not faith, it's not love, it's just business transaction. If we serve with faith but fail in some kind of way, our enthusiasm should not become dampened. In other words, failures can happen. It's all Krishna's plan. So if the faith is that whatever is happening is by Krishna's plan, then nothing to worry about. Okay. So as promised, I'm going to end very quickly by telling you one story, actually true story that happened during Second World War. So about what? A little more than 50 years ago? Oh, sorry, 70 years ago. So the story goes like this. A young soldier found himself in a terrible and hopeless battle. The enemy was soundly defeating this young man's army. He and his comrades found themselves hastily retreating from the battlefield in defeat. And they were running away in fear for their lives. And the enemy was chasing them. This young man ran hard and fast, full of fear and desperation. But unfortunately, soon he found himself cut off from his comrades. He kept running. Eventually, he came upon a rocky lodge. Sorry, rocky, what do you call, hill. There was a cave in it. Knowing that the enemy is not too far behind, and he was exhausted, he just decided he's going to hide in that cave. So after he crawled into the cave, he fell, to his face basically in the darkness, desperately crying to God to save him and to protect him from his enemies. And in a mood of surrender, he promised that if God saved him, he would dedicate his life, the rest of his life, in serving him. Then he saw a very strange sight. He saw a spider beginning to weave its web at the entrance of the cave. As he watched the spider drawing these delicate threads across the mouth of the cave, the young man literally said, "What an irony. I asked God for protection and he sent me a spider. How can a spider save me?" Well, very soon he heard the sound of enemies. And one soldier with a gun, the enemy soldier, actually walked up to the cave, the entrance of the cave, I should say. And as he cautiously moved toward the cave to enter inside, he came upon the spider's web, which by now was completely strung across the opening. So he backed away. The soldier, the enemy soldier, backed away. And he called out to his comrades, the enemies, "Hey, there couldn't be anybody here. They would have had to break this spider's web to enter the cave. Therefore, there's nobody inside. Move on." Krishna does have interesting ways in which he works. We don't need to understand how or what he does. We just need to have faith that whatever he does is good for us, even if it is not obvious immediately. Let us therefore take shelter of the Supreme Lord and serve him sincerely. He guarantees he will help us in times of trouble, especially during those times when everything seems impossible. We may have very powerful enemies, but if we remain under the protection of Krishna, no one can do us any harm. Very famous bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Rakhe Krishna mare Krishna rakhe ke. He whom Krishna protects, no one can kill. But if Krishna wants to kill someone, no one can protect. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for listening. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. We had a lot of answers without even questioning you. You simplified everything. It was super amazing. And I'll just open the forum for all. Anyone who has a question, please let us know. Ashoka Krishna Prabhu is going to, arrange for that. Just raise your hand, or maybe you can just unmute self and ask. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, you talked about faith and surrender. So in our daily life, how can we conclude to when we are struggling with a situation that we should give up fighting against that situation, or should we continue struggling to work with that situation?
So excellent question, by the way, and a very practical question. It happens all the time. So if you remember Arjun in the Battle of Kurukshetra, like I can't imagine a worse situation to be in when you see this huge army in front of you, all these great warriors, soldiers, generals in front of you. And what does Krishna say to him? Fight, get up and fight. So he never asked him to quit. Actually, he strongly discouraged Arjun from quitting and running away. It's a battle. But he put one very interesting condition. It's in the 8th chapter, text 7. It says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmar yuddhija. He said, all the time, no matter what situation you are in, remember me and fight your battle. So you must fight your battle. But you must fight that battle having surrendered to Krishna's will. That is, my dear Lord Krishna, whatever happens, I'll accept it as your mercy because that's what you want to happen. It may be consistent with my desire. It may be totally different from my desire. But your desire is supreme. Therefore, I'll accept it. If I win, wonderful. If I lose, wonderful, because that loss is coming as your mercy. What can be better? What can be bigger than your mercy? And that's the attitude we're talking about. And when you have faith in Krishna that he's our best friend, he's our best well-wisher, he won't let anything that's bad for us happen to us. So what happens is that our perception is different. Sometimes our perception is short-term. If something bad happened today, then it's bad. What we don't see is that something bad happening today is perhaps leading to something great. Few days, few weeks, few years from now. And Krishna has a long-term perspective. We have a very short-term perspective. And that's the difference that causes us problems. So for example, Krishna told Arjun to shoot arrows at his own grandfather who had put his weapons down. Like that's against the rules of the battle. And a warrior like Arjun would never do that. But Arjun said, no, if you're asking me to do, there must be some good in it. Therefore, I shall do it. When he was battling Karna, same thing. Karna was not fighting. He was trying to retrieve his chariot from where it was stuck. And Krishna said, shoot at him. Arjun said, okay. Normally, he would not do that. When Arjun's son, Abhimanyu, died, Krishna said, accept it. Arjun said, okay. And then they talked about what else they will do. When Ashwatthama killed all the child of Uttara, tried to kill the child of Uttara, which is Parikshit Maharaj. They caught Ashwatthama. And the initial idea was to kill him. Krishna said, not a good idea. They said, okay, we'll let him go. So that's my point. We should accept Krishna's advice. And we don't get it directly. Sometimes it comes through scriptures, through the devotees, through our guru. But the faith should remain, no matter what happens, it's good for me because that's Krishna's desire. So once you have that faith, you have nothing to worry about. Yes, you still endeavor, you still try. But whatever happens at the end of it, that's what Krishna wants. And then you're fine. Did I answer your question? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Prabhuji, like when the people were pulling the sari of Draupadi, then she was holding with one hand and she was also praying to Krishna. So she had that faith. But then later on, Krishna said that since she was still holding the sari, so it was difficult for him to come to the rescue. So in the same situation in today's world, we are struggling with the thing, and we have that faith that Krishna is there, and we are working. So that's the fine point where I'm trying to understand at what point should we lose and raise both our hands, just as Draupadi did.
Well, to be honest with you, and I know it's difficult to understand or accept because of our conditioning, is that the sooner you do it, the better it is. Because Draupadi did not do it soon enough, so she had to struggle. If she had raised her hands right in the beginning, I said, "My dear Lord Krishna, help me. I'm in trouble," without having to go through all the husbands and elders in the family, in the assembly, then she could have saved some time and some anxiety. The problem is that for us, even though we read in the scriptures, we hear about this, Krishna is always plan B. We need to get to the stage where Krishna is plan A. But our surrender is not complete yet. We're not surrendered. We like to think we are surrendered, but we're not. Let's be honest. We're brutally honest. We're not surrendered. Little, yes, little is there. So accordingly, he also shows little. And the rest of the time you're struggling and wondering why Krishna is doing this to us. Krishna is not doing it to you. We're doing it to ourselves, our karmas and all those kind of things. So it's that we want to do this much, we want that much in return. What Krishna is saying, no, is proportional. The degree to which you surrender to me, the degree to of your faith, is how I reciprocate. Je jatha mam prapadyante, tam sathaya bhajamyam. So he said it very clearly. I'll do according to your faith, according to the degree of surrender. But we want to do little surrender and big return, immediate return. That's not. Okay? So we have to increase our surrender and we have to accept whatever Krishna gives us. Then we are fine. But you still have to battle. No running away from battle. We never see a picture of Arjun leaning back in his chariot saying to Krishna, okay, I surrender, you fight. Never did that. Right? So we got to fight. We got to fight our own battles. Just leave the results to Krishna. Am I answering your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Prabhuji.
thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other questions?
Yes, Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Right. So my question is around the prayers. So first thing is, because Krishna knows our desires, right? And he is sitting in our heart as Paramatma. Is there any point for praying to Krishna for mundane things? I believe no, but I just want to hear. And then, because when we pray for Krishna for mundane things, are we not undermining his position as Bhagwan? And second is, if not, then what should we pray to Krishna and how one should pray?
Another excellent question. So it's a very interesting question also in that we know the devotees, at least, or aspiring devotees, having heard in classes, having discussed with our friends, devotee friends, excuse me, and having read in the scriptures, we know we should not have material desires. But the fact is that we do. We know that we should not ask from Krishna for material things because like business transaction, but we do because we haven't gotten to the level of desirelessness. So Krishna says, you know what? I understand that. There's a very wonderful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kamo udarti. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajet purusham param. He says, even if you have material desires or no material desires, even if you want just liberation, come to me and ask me. Why does he say that? He says, when you go to somebody else like a demigod, they can only do one thing, which is grant your material desire. That's it. There's no other choice they have. I mean, they can say, I'm not going to give it to you or give you what you want. But Krishna has a third option. And that third option is described very nicely in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it says, I'm going to translate from Bengali to English. He says, this person, this so-called devotee, is asking me for some material benediction. And Krishna says, he's a bloody fool. That's my words, but basically saying, he's a bloody fool. Then Krishna says, He may be a bloody fool, but I'm not a fool. So I'm going to, sorry, I should add. And he says, and he's a bloody fool because giving up the pot of nectar, he's asking me to give him a pot of poison. And then he says, but he's a fool, but I'm not a fool. Therefore, instead of giving him the pot of poison, I'm going to give him the nectar of my lotus feet, the shelter of my lotus feet, by which his material desires will be transformed into spiritual desires and he'll become a pure devotee. That option only Krishna has, nobody else does. So say, okay, if because of your conditioned nature, you can't help it, but ask me for material desires, go ahead and ask me. If I'm kind of in a mood to say, okay, fine, I just grant your material desire, and then I'm done. You did some prayers, I gave you something material, haath jhado, baat khatam, ada bida, business transaction completed. Right? But if he shows his real mercy, he says, why should I give you that? I'd rather make you my pure devotee because that's in the long term. Which is what I was saying in answer to Anil Prabhu's question, which is Krishna knows what's going to happen in long term. He has a long term perspective. Sometimes he puts us in difficulty deliberately, not just by our karmas, to ensure our attachment to him increases even more. So basically, summarizing the answer to your question is, if you must ask for material, go ahead and ask Krishna. Yes, he knows already, but it doesn't matter. For your own satisfaction, you can pray. Because the honest truth is, even though we know Krishna knows our desires, we don't feel satisfaction at stopping at that. Oh, Krishna already knows. We want to say it. We want to verbalize it for our own satisfaction. So, okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Verbalize it. I still do what I want to do. You can verbalize it if that makes you feel happy. Okay? Did I address your question, Paul?
Yes. No, and then second part, like this is if we don't want to ask for material things, so how one should pray for spiritual things, and like what should be the mood? Like I heard, like we should not just ask, like we should first glorify in Lord. Like when we do Lord Darshan daily in the morning, we should first glorify and then basically ask anything.
So that's true. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, finish it.
Yeah, so I just want to reconfirm that the correct way of praying to Lord.
So the correct way, as you said, is first to glorify him and then say a very important sentence, should you so desire.
Okay.
Because just because you prayed, Krishna is not obliged to you.
Right.
Don't make him obliged that you have no choice now. Because I prayed, you have to give me. He's not bound by that. He's not your servant.
Right.
It's not. So should you desire, should you so desire, if you please, with that mood, you say, please, this is my request. Now, the request should always be to give you more service.
Mm-hmm.
Service to him, service to the devotees of him.
Yes.
With the mood that you simply want to please. Please allow me to do things that will please you. Please allow me to use things you have given me to please you. Because the bottom line is always to please you, not please me. But in the material world, it's the other way around. Krishna, you are my servant. I'm giving you my list. Fulfill every one of them because you're simply my servant. Your job is to please me. And that's the mentality that we're living with and ensuring our existence in the material world for infinity, eternity. And that's the difference.
Okay.
A devotee never asks for anything material, simply asks to be allowed to serve if Krishna so desires.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank
It
you.
was a ditto question from me as well.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
So one answer, two questions. That's very good.
Yes, two people. I would say I think a lot of people would have the same query. You have dispelled the clouds for a lot of people.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any
Is there
more
anybody else?
questions? Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else has any questions? We can take one or two more.
Is anybody awake?
Everyone is.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to do that. You know, when I start talking, people fall asleep.
I never do.
I know, you especially.
जो सोवत है वो खोवत है प्रभु.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
We've lost
Hare
enough. We don't want to lose more.
Hare
That's
Krishna,
right.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question. It might sound like silly question,
Who's this?
but
Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry. Let me show myself
Thank you.
once again.
It's easier to relate to the person. Oh, there you go. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
If, as you said, we shouldn't be asking for material position from Krishna, I do understand that. But if we want to pray to Krishna, like for some other people who are not Krishna consciousness, and we want them to get the benefit of being Krishna consciousness, and we pray to Krishna to ask for his mercy, for his blessing toward that particular person. Is that also like asking for material thing?
No, no. You're asking Krishna to help this person become Krishna conscious. That's actually service. Service. But still, your prayer should be prefixed with, should you so desire, if you would please. You still can't force it. But yeah, absolutely, that's very great. Great.
Thank you.
Actually, all the acharyas are praying exactly for that, for us. The acharyas are praying for us. They're pointing at me and saying that give that rascal some bhakti. You know, that's what they're doing. If you look at the bhajans, that's what they're doing. Give everybody a attachment to your lotus feet. So that's wonderful, Mata. If that's your attitude, wonderful.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Ashok
Do we
Krishna.
have any more questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. That was a wonderful class.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me asking a question to the class, so you talked about the different types of faith and also how do we develop transcendental faith.
So I'm having difficulty hearing you. Sorry.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Is it better now?
Much better, yes.
Okay. So my question is like, you talked about how we develop and maintain faith, but could you expand more on how do we test if we have faith? Like how do we know if we have progressed in developing faith?
If you're progressing developing faith?
Yes.
Okay. Good question. Yeah, very good question. So two things. How do we test our faith? And how do we know that we're progressing? Well, so actually it's relatively simple to test from your reaction to things. How do you react to situations in your life? There could be good situations, like good material gain, or there could be bad situations, a bad material loss. Of any degree, it could be financial, it could be job, it could be a loved one, or what, it could be anything. And the question you have to ask yourself is, how am I reacting to the situation I am in? Am I getting all flustered, frustrated, and angry, and resentful, and fighting harder and harder in a mood of anger, and I'm not accepting what's happening? Then you know the faith is very little. If you're on the other side of the extreme, of the spectrum, I should say, where no matter what happens, you're equipoised. You're not giddy with pleasure when good things are happening, and you're not crying your eyes out when something bad happens. You're able to accept and you remain balanced on a level platform. Then you know that your faith is strong. And how you're handling your own desires. If you're again getting very frustrated and your demands or your desires keep on increasing on material level, then you know there's a problem with your faith. If on the other hand, you are working hard, but you don't complain when the results are not to your liking. When you're getting yourself into situations, but you're not getting credit. And you say, well, that's what Krishna's plan is. And therefore, it's okay. I'm okay with that. When maybe you're looking for a job and nothing is happening, you're not saying, oh, Krishna, I served him so much, he's doing this to me, I'm never going back to the temple. Or why should I serve him when he doesn't take care of me? That's lack of faith. On the other hand, you say, well, there's some good job coming my way. Krishna is just waiting for the right time for this to happen. In the meantime, look at me. No job, but I'm happy. I'm still getting to eat. I still have a house to live in. I don't know how Krishna is doing this. But somehow he's doing this that I don't have to suffer. I'm not out on the street. Then your faith is strong. So my point is, it all depends upon how you're reacting, how you're accepting. That shows you the level of the faith that you have. Okay?
That was a wonderful explanation, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
You're
for
very
that
welcome.
answer.
Good question, by the way. Very practical. Like all the questions today were very practical.
And a very, I would say, enlightening answers to all the questions, Prabhu,
Thank
as
you.
well.
You're so kind.
When you, no, Prabhu, when the clouds get dispelled, the clarity increases, the faith increases, and your service increases.
That's very true. Very good. Very good point. Yes.
I would say
Very
Krishna
true.
is very merciful. He's sending us the association of all such great devotees like you who come and enlighten us. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
You're easily pleased.
Any more good, intelligent questions coming from our devotees? Okay. Ashwini Krishna Prabhu, over
So
to you.
looks like no more questions. So thank you so much, Prabhu. I think
Thank you.
we can end. So on behalf of ISKCON Milton Management, I thank you for taking your time and enlightening us. And actually, I see that this coronavirus has given us a virtual platform. Now we can associate with devotees through this, and like which was not possible earlier. So I hope we can get your association in future also.
My pleasure, Prabhu.
Yeah. So again, I thank you. And
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you
Yeah,
all
Hare
again.
Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to your association once again and
Thank you
over
for
and
the
over
opportunity.
again.
Thank you for the
Thank you
opportunity.
so
Thank
much.
you.
And
Hare
thank you to all devotees for joining in. But yes, before we leave, we have nourishing prayers, which is going to be done by Shrutika and Shanika. Shrutika and Shanika, are you ready, dear?
Yes.
Great. Good to hear. Over to you, our little angels, for nourishing prayers.
Jai.
Yeah.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay. Come
Yes, Shanika and Shrutika. Please go ahead.
What is the background? Narsimha Aarti. No. No, it's okay. It's okay. Why are you doing that, Shrutika? Namaste Narasingaya. Pranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatangan Nakalaye To Nashingo Balato Nashingo Yato Yato Yamitato Nashingo Bahir Nashingo Hrudaye Nashingo Narasing Namane Prapade Tavakara Kamalavane Naka Abhuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashi Venga Keshavadvaita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Narsingh Bhagavan ki jai ki jai
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shrutika. Thank you, Shanika. That was super amazing. To all our devotees, wishing you a great week ahead and look forward to all of you joining again next Sunday, same time. I don't want to sound like a radio jockey again. So,
Hare
so
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna to all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much
Thank
once
you.
again, Rupanuga Prabhu, to be our guest today. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna to all.
Pratana
Patitanam Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
namo
Namaha.
namaha.